Hello children, and we continue with God's big story in the Bible. And in this video we're going to look and see that God's promise to Abraham is to all generations, starting with Isaac. We read this in Genesis chapter 23 to 25. Now Sarah lived for 127 years. She died at Hebron in the land of Canaan, and Abraham mourned for Sarah. He bought a piece of land at Machpelah from the man who belonged to the Hittites, one of the tribes in Canaan. He buried Sarah in a cave on this piece of land, this land that was promised to Abraham, but that did not yet belong to him. It belonged to the Canaanites. But this burial cave of Sarah's is a wonderful clue that one day all the land of Canaan would belong to Abraham's descendants, the Israelites, and would be called Israel. While Abraham himself was old and preparing to die, Isaac was a young man, ready for marriage. Finding the right wife for Isaac was very important, because God had promised to make a great nation of Abraham. Isaac's wife must be from among Abraham's own family. In Mesopotamia, remember where the Lord had brought Abraham from? She must be from there rather than from the tribes in Canaan. So Abraham sent his most trusted servant off to bring a wife for Isaac. He made the servant promise to follow God's guidance to just the right wife for Isaac. The servant said, "But what if the woman doesn't want to follow me to this land? Must I take your son back to the land you came from?" And Abraham said, "Do not take my son back there. The Lord, the God of heaven, who gave me the land of my father, who took me from the land of my father, and who spoke to me, he promised me that my descendants would possess this land. He will send his angel before you, and you shall take a wife for my son from there. But if the woman is not willing to follow you, then you will be free to come back. Only you must not take my son back there." So the servant promised Abraham to do as he had asked. The servant took 10 of his master's camels and departed, taking all sorts of choice gifts from his master. And he arose and he went to Mesopotamia, to the city of Nahor. And he made the camels kneel down outside the city by the well of water at the time of evening. This was the time when women go out to draw water. "O Lord," he said, "God of my master Abraham, please give me success today, and show your steadfast love to my master Abraham. I am standing by the spring of water, and the young women of the city are coming out to draw water. Let the young woman to whom I shall say, 'Please, let down your jar that I may drink,' and who shall say, 'Drink, and I will water your camels,' let her be the one you have chosen to marry Isaac. This will be a sign to me that you have shown steadfast love to my master." Before he had finished speaking, Rebekah came out of the well with her water jar on her shoulder. She was Nahor's daughter, and Nahor was Abraham's brother. And she did exactly as the servant had asked. She offered him water, and then she offered to water his camels. Abraham's servant prayed. He said, "Blessed be the Lord, the God of my master Abraham, who has not turned away from his steadfast love and his faithfulness towards my master. The Lord has led me to the daughter of my master's brother." Abraham's servant then spoke with Rebekah's father and brother about Rebekah's marriage to Isaac. They spoke to Rebekah, and she agreed to return with the servant to the land of Canaan to marry Isaac. Now Rebekah's family blessed her and said, "Our sister, may you become thousands of 10,000s, and may your descendants have victory over their enemies." Then Rebekah and her young woman took their belongings and rode on camels with Abraham's servant. And so the servant took Rebekah and went his way back to Abraham in Canaan. One evening Isaac went out to pray in the field, and he lifted up his eyes and saw the camels approaching. When Rebekah saw Isaac, she dismounted from the camel and asked the servant who the young man was. "It is my master's son, Isaac." Isaac loved Rebekah, and she became his wife, and so Isaac was comforted after his mother's death. Now Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rebekah to be his wife, and Isaac prayed to the Lord for his wife, because she was unable to have children. And the Lord answered his prayer, and Rebekah conceived not just one baby, but twins. The children struggled together within her, and she asked the Lord why this was happening. "2 nations are in your womb, and 2 peoples from within you shall be separated. The one shall be stronger than the other, and the older shall serve the younger." This is what the Lord said to Rebekah. When it was time for Rebekah to give birth, the first child came out red. All his body was like a hairy cloak, so they called him Esau. This sounds like the Hebrew for hairy. Afterwards his brother came out with his hand holding Esau's heel, and so his name was called Jacob. And that can mean that it's related to the word for heel, and the saying goes that someone who grabs the heel is somebody who takes somebody's place. These names will be significant later on in our story. When the boys grew up, Esau was a skillful hunter, a man of the field. Jacob was a quiet man, living in tents. Isaac loved Esau because he enjoyed eating the game he hunted, but Rebekah loved Jacob. This is where we end our story today. There's a few questions I want you to think about. Firstly, what does Abraham say to his servant that shows us that Abraham trusts God's promise to him and his descendants that they will have the land of Canaan, even though the land currently belongs to many other tribes? What does he say? And that they will only receive the land from God far in the future. Just think of what Abraham said to his servant. That shows that he still trusts God's promise of land. And then also, what does Rebekah's family say to her that shows us that God intends his promise to Abraham of land, descendants, and blessing to be a promise to Isaac too? And what clues do we get that things are not going to go well between Esau and Jacob? Does this look like blessing is going to follow? Which other brothers in the Bible does this remind us of? Is the promise of descendants maybe in trouble? Will it mean that God's promises to Abraham will fall away? Well, we'll look at that in our next lesson. Goodbye, children.